Today's training is about HACCP, and today we're going to discuss about the HACCP Internal Auditor Training. How you can do the audit for your HACCP system, that thing we're going to learn today. So please be with me, and please do not forget to subscribe my channel and like my videos, and please do share with your friends and colleagues as well. So let's start our training, HACCP Internal Auditor. Course objectives, what you're going to learn through this training. First of all, you're going to learn about the HACCP plan, how you can develop and how you can implement a HACCP plan. After this training, you can design a HACCP management system. You can perform internal HACCP system audits. How you can do the audit for the HACCPs, that thing you're going to learn through this training. So the HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. H for hazard, A for analysis, C for critical, C for control, P for point. So it is a food safety management system, HACCP. Foodborne illness. Before we start HACCP Internal Auditor System training, first of all, I will introduce you some basic concepts about the food safety and certain other requirements for the HACCP. Then it will be very easy for you to understand the HACCP audit systems. And after that, you can perform the audit easily. So let's understand these terms. Foodborne illness. So around 48 million cases per year we are getting around the world, and 10,000 deaths per year because of foodborne illness, which we are calling food poisoning. Examples of food contamination. There are some examples which I am giving you. These are some cases which happened in the past. In 2019, more than 8,000 cases of food poisoning have been reported in Dubai. That's data for Dubai. And Dubai restaurant closed after 15 fall in food poisoning outbreak. In Japan, 10 days after the worst food poisoning outbreak in half a century, health authorities have not isolated its cause, and children are still dying. In 10 days, E. coli bacterium 0157 has struck down more than 6,500 people, mostly children, in what the World Health Organization estimates is the worst single case of food contamination. That is the one. Goodman Fielder Limited subsidiary Uncle Toby's estimates the peanut butter scare has cost as $100,000 in lost sales of peanut butter muesli bars. The USA and Canada quarantined 4 shipments of Australian meat contain antibiotic residues. So these are some examples of food contamination around the world. HACCP. Safe food is obtained by applying HACCP from farm to fork. So if you will implement a HACCP system, these are the benefits you're going to get. Hazards are all kind of agents when present at an acceptable level. So control means having things under control to make sure that there are no any hazard with the food, or you are reducing that hazard to an acceptable level. That is a control. Food safety. Food safety is the assurance that will not cause harm to the consumer when it is prepared or eaten according to its intended use. That is a food safety. Why is food safety important? And why the safe food is important? Safe food is important because of protect human health, because of reputation, avoid brand damage, comply with law, avoid fine and legal action. That's why food safety is very, very important. And we have the moral responsibility that whatever the food we are preparing and we are serving to the guests and or the customers, that is free of harm, and that will not cause any harm or injury after consumption. So that's why food safety is very, very important. Factors affecting food safety. What are the things that can cause or that can affect food safety? International trade and globalization, rapid worldwide expansion in trade of food, consumer demographic and lifestyle, eating habits, incidence of allergies, increased travel, demand of wider variety of eating experiences, new technologies like irradiation, microwave processing, and MAC, modified atmosphere packaging, changing hazards, genetically modified organism, bioterrorism. The factors involved in the potential threat caused by the foods are inappropriate agricultural practice, poor hygiene at any stage of the food chain, lack of preventive control during processing and preparation of the food, and the incorrect use of the chemical materials. All of these factors will affect the food safety. And as we know that day to day the population is increasing, and the way the population is increasing, food is getting short and short. And that's why the people who are involving in the food business, what they are doing the adulteration of the food. They are changing the food. They are adding the chemicals. And these are the things affecting the food safety. Preventing foodborne disease. How we can prevent the foodborne disease? Prevent contamination. Assume all raw products are contaminated. Whenever you are purchasing any raw food or any food from the market, you have to assume that all raw products they are contaminated. You have to take in that way. Handle to prevent transfer of the contamination from raw to finished product. Prevent microbes from multiplying to hazardous level. Destroy the agent that cause disease, cooking, pasteurizing, sterilizing, freezing, and radiation. These are the options you can take to avoid the bacteria, or you can kill the bacteria. These are the 10 main reasons for food poisoning, causes, and hazards. The first, the left-hand side, we have cause. The preparation too far in advance and storage at ambient temperature. You are preparing your food in too far in advance. Let's say that you have to eat your food at night, 9 p.m., but you are preparing your food in the morning. After the preparation, you are keeping your food outside in room temperature. So what will happen? So the bacteria will start to multiply, and they will multiply more rapidly because you are keeping them outside in room temperature for a long time. After that, we have the inadequate cooling. Whenever you are cooling your food product, you are not cooling that rapidly. So what will happen? Again, you are providing more time, so bacteria will multiply. Inadequate reheating. If you are not reheating your food properly, so what will happen? Bacteria will not die and they will survive. Contaminated processed canned food, food which is contaminated by the bacteria and certain other things. Undercooking, bacteria will survive if it is not cooked properly. Inadequate thawing, survival in cooking, bacteria will survive in the cooking. Cross contamination, bacteria will transfer. And the raw food consumed, if you will consume raw food, what will happen? Bacteria, they will get inside your body. Raw food you are storing below 63 degrees Celsius. So the bacteria will multiply again. And infected food handlers, contamination. If the food handlers, they are contaminated, they are not washing their hands, they are not maintaining personal hygiene, so what will happen? Bacteria will be transferred from their hands, from their bodies, from their uniforms, and certain other things to the food items. So these are the 10 main reasons that can cause food poisoning. Now the HACCP. HACCP aims at preventing hazards at the earliest possible point at the food chain. Other than contaminants, pathogenic microorganisms, physical objects, chemical, raw materials, or process, inadequate directions for the use to the consumer. After that, the storage conditions. So it will aims at all these things to make sure that whatever the food you are processing, whatever the food you are preparing, that is safe for any hazards and that is safe for consumption. HACCP works on the principles: do only what is needed, think, investigate, study, and do. That is the principles of HACCP. Now the HACCP differentiates the nice from the necessary, the essentials from the superfluous. So these are the principles and HACCP differentiates. HACCP, a system for food safety control, preventive, not reactive. It is a preventive measure, not a reactive. Preventive means before anything go wrong, you have to take the action, not after any accident or incidents. A management tool used to protect the food supply against hazards, not a zero risk system. It minimizes the risk but not completely eliminates. So what the HACCP will do, it will reduce the risk to an acceptable level, but it will not remove completely 100%. So it will only reduce it to an acceptable level. That is the HACCP system. After that, HACCP, a process control system preventing problems or mistakes. If you can figure out what might go wrong, you can work towards finding ways to prevent the problems. It includes checkpoint along the process, allowing you to know if process is working properly. So through the HACCP, you can check that whether your HACCP system is working properly or not, whether it is going to control the hazard or eliminate the hazards to an acceptable level or not, so that you can check. Now let's understand the origin of HACCP. HACCP pioneered in 1960 is first used when foods were developed for the space program. So this is the history of HACCP. Based on failure mode and effect analysis, during 1970s and early 1980s, HACCP was used to some extent for non-canned foods, but it was in 1985 that it was applied seriously to various categories of food. So since 1985, it was applied to various categories of food, and since then, it is used by the different industries, different organizations. They are using continuously. It is adopted by many food processors and the US government, and it was first used by the Pennsylvania NASA in 1960. Alternative to end-them product and item product testing. Organic inspection did not guarantee safety, cannot test 100% of the product. So this is the history of HACCP, how it is started and where it is now. Now, why HACCP? Why we need to choose HACCP? Contaminated products, wide variety of potentially harmful materials are there, occur worldwide. 3 types of hazards: biological, chemical, and physical. Human health implications, huge cost implication may result from tampering or shopper abuse. So this is the reason of HACCP. Why should food companies use HACCP? It is a proven system which gives assurance of effectively managed food safety. So it is proven. And since long time, the people who's using the HACCP, they have the faith that the HACCP can reduce the hazard and it can avoid the hazard and can help to companies to produce the safe food. So that can maintain the image of the company as well. Enables company to maintain top priority on food product safety. Involvement of personnel from different disciplines ensure that all employees have the same fundamental objective. Food safety is a must. Assures customers of the safety of its operations, indicating that it is responsible and professional company. It is a legislative requirement in most of the countries, like in Dubai, each and every handling companies, they must have HACCP. HACCP is a logical, practical, low cost, and common sense approach to food safety through the anticipation and prevention of hazard. Also, having safe food. If you will not have the safe food, what can go wrong? It can cause human illness, death, constraints on healthcare and public health systems. After then, lost productivity in the workforce, recall and destructions of food, loss of sales and reputations can happen, damaged tourism industry unemployment, legal settlements, business and close down. And the people who is managing the business, they have to go behind the bar because they are the whole and sole responsible for the food safety in that particular company. So these are the things can go wrong if you will not maintain your food safe. Now, standards of HACCP, Joint Food Agriculture Organization and WHO Codex Alimentarius Committee 1963 to protect the health of consumers and to ensure fair practices in trade. 7 principles recognized internationally. FDA Food Department Authority Seafood HACCP regulations. Safe Quality Food 2000 based on HACCP. So these are the standards of HACCP. Now, Codex. Codex is an internationally accepted food standards that is there based on sound science, important in making decisions to determine a product will allowed into a country. Provide opportunity for all countries to join in formulating and harmonizing food standards. Highlights key hygiene controls. Codex standard serves as the benchmark for international standard in food safety. So Codex Alimentarius International Food Standard, it is a committee which is managing the HACCP and it is providing the guidelines for the HACCP, how to use the HACCP also. So all the guidelines are there under the HACCP Codex. Basic of HACCP. HACCP, before you implement the HACCP, there are some certain requirements that you have to implement also, like good hygiene practice and good manufacturing practice and safe standard operating procedures, and no SSOP, no HACCP. If there is no SSOP, there will be no HACCP. SSOP documented and implemented, facility sanitization, cleaning schedules, pH, good hygiene practices, good manufacturing practices, the entire system verified by QA personnel and records them. The entire system, before you implement any system, any you start any food business, food production, the full system should be verified by a QA person, quality department people who have the thorough knowledge about the food safety and the quality. So standard sanitization operation procedure should be there to implement the HACCP. Now, there are some prerequisites of HACCP. Before you implement the HACCP, there are some certain requirements that you have to fulfill. Then you have to go for the HACCP implementation. There are some prerequisite programs like management commitment, plan design as well, good hygiene practice, good manufacturing practice, insect and pest controls, product identification and traceability, trained personnel should be there, calibration of the equipments that you are using for the measurements and monitoring the temperature, recall procedures, how you're going to recall your food product if there is any problem. And there is a training also and the utilities that you are using. So these are some prerequisites of HACCP. Now, prerequisites of HACCP, we will learn them in a detailed way. First, we have the premises. Premises, what will come under the premises? Under the premises, it will come building, it will come sanitary facilities, water, steam, ice quality program. Under the water, you have to make sure that the water which you are getting, it should be from the safe source. The source should not be contaminated, and steam which you are using for food, that should not be contaminated as well. And the ice quality should be properly maintained also. After that, you have the transportation and storage. Food carriers, temperature control during the transportation, storage of incoming material where you're going to store it, non-food chemical, and food item and the chemical that should be separate, different vehicles and finished products, how you're going to transport them and how you're going to store them. All these things will come under transportation and storage. Now, prerequisites of HACCP sanitary facilities. Washroom, sanitary facilities, it will include washrooms, lunchrooms and change rooms, hand washing facilities, plumbing, sewage disposal, how you're going to dispose the sewage, and toilet facilities, rubbish and offal disposal, equipment, cleaning and sanitizing facilities, substances used in cleaning and sanitizing, and storage of toxic materials. How you're going to store them, toxic material, to make sure that those toxic material will not cause any harm or hazard to the food product. That will be the equipment. The equipment, whenever you are selecting an equipment, first of all, you need to check the general equipment design. So equipment should be easy to clean and easy to maintain. That should not cause any hazard, any poison to the food and any risk to the food. And the equipment should be calibrated and it should be maintained and it should be properly installed. After that, we have the personnel, the people who is involving in the food preparation, food handling, or food transporting. Person should be properly trained for the food safety, so at least they should know that what are the hazards involved with the food and how you going to control that hazard. Hygiene and health requirements, people hygiene should be checked, personal hygiene should be checked on daily basis, and the health should be checked also. Recall procedure. Recall procedure should be there. How are you going to recall the food product? You should have the list of all of your customers, and if there is any issue, how are you going to recall that food product? And you should have the distribution records also, which we are calling dispatch record, food dispatch records, that you should maintain under the product recall procedure. Good manufacturing practices. Washing of hands before handling food. Head covering. You should cover your head to avoid any hazard from your head. Persons with skin eruptions, communicable disease or infected conditions to be kept away from food processing areas. You should not accept them in the food processing areas. Clean uniforms to be worn. You should provide the proper uniform to your employees. They should not work with their personal uniform. Jewelry and other articles like pens, etc., not to be allowed in the processing area. Smoking or chewing of tobacco prohibited. Consumption of food and beverages allowed only in designated area. You should not allow them in the food processing areas. Use of nail polish and perfume not permitted. Do not allow them to use these kind of products. Nail polish can chip and the perfume can taint the food product. Glass objects to be kept away from production area. Implement for this purpose. I would suggest you to just implement a glass policy and do not allow any glass product inside the food production area. Good housekeeping practices to be followed. All these things come under the good manufacturing practices. 8 key sanitization areas. Safety of water. You have to make sure that the water which you are getting inside your facility that is safe for consumption, that is safe for food production, and your water system should be clean and sanitized on periodic basis. And that sample should be tested for the Legionella as well. Condition and cleanliness of the food contact surfaces. Prevention of cross-contamination. You should avoid the cross-contamination. There are certain ways which you can use, like color coding and different other processes that you can use to avoid cross-contamination. Maintenance of hand washing in toilet facilities. Protection from adulterants. Labeling and storage of toxic compounds. Employee health conditions and exclusion of pests. Now, activity 1, hand washing and sanitization. What is the purpose of hand washing? Hand washing stations and hand sanitization facilities are located in all processing areas where good sanitary practices required employees to wash and sanitize their hands. That is the purpose. These facilities must be equipped with hand cleaning and effective sanitizing preparation and disposable towels. This is a hand washing station. Hand dips will be located in all entrance to the process floor, including entrance from the administrative office. These will be used upon entry to the process areas. And in addition, line employees will use foot dips for their goods, which will be also be located to each entrance to the production floor. Restrooms will be equipped with foot activated and hand washing facilities, soap dispensers stocked with antibacterial soap and disposable towels. So hand washing and sanitizing facilities should be equipped with the soap, sanitizing facilities. There should be the garbage bin where they will throw their used tissue, and after the hand drying, they should use the sanitizer as well. So these are the things you need to maintain before entry of the food production area, whichever door is going directly to the production area. In that door, before you enter the food production area, there should be the hand washing and sanitizing facilities. So that hazards. What is the meaning of hazard? Hazard, a biological, chemical, or physical property that may cause a food to be unsafe for consumption. We can say that hazard is anything which can cause harm. In HACCP, it refers to conditions or contaminants in foods that can cause illness or injury. So that is a hazard. As we know that for the food safety, there are 4 hazards: physical, biological, chemical, and allergen. First, we will start with the microbiological hazards. Our first type of hazard is microbiological hazards. Include harmful bacteria, food infection and food intoxication, spore forming and non-spore forming bacteria, viruses, hepatitis A to E, noroviruses group, parasites hazards, and we have the fungi, yeast, and mold. So these are the different types of microbiological hazards. So that primary bacterial growth factors, these are the things bacteria need to multiply. Without these things, bacteria will not multiply. We can remember all these 6 words by one word. We are calling it phytome. A, T, T, O, M. We are calling it FATOM. Food, acid, time, temperature, oxygen, and moisture. These are the certain requirements which bacteria need to multiply. Bacterial hazards, Listeria monocytogenes. Now we will learn some things about the bacteria, some characteristics about the bacteria. So Listeria monocytogenes, the source of Listeria monocytogenes is animal intestine, soil, milk, leafy vegetables, poultry, meats, seafood, ready-to-eat foods, grows slowly at refrigerator temperature. This is the bacteria which can grow under low temperature also. Below 3 degrees Celsius also Listeria monocytogen can grow, and it can grow inside a chiller. Symptoms of Listeria monocytogen infection causes an infection with mild flu-like symptoms. Severe forms of listeriosis are possible in people with weakened immune system, causing septic and meningitis. What is the prevention? Avoid raw milk. Do not consume any raw milk. Cheese from unpasteurized milk, do not consume. Cook foods to proper temperature. Avoid cross-contamination. Clean and disinfect. These are the precautions that you can use to avoid Listeria monocytogenes. Second one, we have bacterial hazards, which we have Salmonella. Salmonella is one of the most common bacteria which is involving in the food poisoning around the world. So whenever you are dealing with any food, you have to be very, very careful. What are the sources of Salmonella? The sources of Salmonella may be found in poultry, eggs, meat, fish, milk, and products made from them, and multiplies rapidly at room temperature. So you should not keep your food product at room temperature. What are symptoms? Symptoms can cause an infection with the following symptoms like nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramps, diarrhea, fever, and headache, which is a normal symptoms of foodborne illness. This is possible in people with weakened immune system. If your immune system is very weak, and the people they have the weak immune system, like pregnant women, ill people, young children, and old people, they have the high chances that they can die. Now, how you can prevent? You can prevent, avoid cross-contamination, cook foods to proper temperature, prompt and proper refrigeration of foods, practice good personal hygiene. That is the requirement for to avoid salmonella. Now, bacterial hazards, Clostridium botulinum. The third type of bacteria we have Clostridium botulinum. The sources of Clostridium botulinum is soil and water. That is a common one. Produce a toxin in oxygen-free and low-acid environment. Canned low-acid foods, garlic in oil, saute onions, leftover potatoes, stews, meat, and poultry loaves. These are the common sources of Clostridium botulinum. What are the symptoms? If you will infected with the Clostridium botulinum, you may face intoxication that affects the central nervous system. Your central nervous system can be affected and cause shortness of breath, blurred eye vision, loss of motor capabilities, and death. So these are the symptoms. How we can prevent? You can prevent, avoid home canned products, purchase garlic in oil in small quantities and refrigerates, time and temperature control. Cool leftover rapidly, etc. So these are the prevention that you can use to avoid Clostridium botulinum. Botulism food poisoning by Clostridium botulinum. It can cause botulism food poisoning. We are calling it botulism. After that, we have Bacillus cereus. The fourth type of bacteria we have Bacillus cereus. The cause is two distinct type of gastroenteritis, diarrheal type and emetic type. The symptoms, diarrheal type is profuse watery diarrhea and abdominal pain, nausea and vomiting. Emetic type like nausea and vomiting. The sources is food sources like raw food or plant origin, cereal products, spices, and milk. So these are the sources of Bacillus cereus. Now, after that, we have Staphylococcus. Its toxin production causes the illness symptoms like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, and fever. Mortality has been reported in infants and elderly adults, old people. Sources in nature is 30 to 50% of the population carries. This is the throat and skin. that we can Staphylococcus aureus that we can get in our throat and skin. This bacteria normally we will get in our skin. So food sources like raw meat and poultry, dairy products, salads, and canned food products. So Staphylococcus aureus, this bacteria normally it can transfer from our body also. So that's why we always say that always maintain your personal hygiene. Whenever you are touch any food product, avoid direct touching by your hands. You can use the gloves, you can hand wash also, and you can use any ladle also, and certain other things you can use. Then we have E. coli. It is a part of natural microflora of intestine. The most important group is hemorrhagic, causing food poisoning. Symptoms like diarrhea, abdominal pain, anemia, renal failure, the CNS can be involved, leading to coma and seizures. What are the sources of food? The sources of food is meat, dairy products, vegetables. So these are the sources of E. coli. Now we will learn about the viral hazards, viruses. First, microorganisms, we have hepatitis A virus. Hepatitis A virus, it can cause fever and abdominal discomfort followed by jaundice. Norovirus, we can say that it causes nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal pain, gastroenteritis, and headache, and low-grade fever may also occur with the virus. Viral hazards. Viruses vary widely in the ability to withstand heat and cold, do not require potentially hazardous foods to survive, so do not increase in number while they are in food. Whenever they are in food, they will not increase. Whenever they will go inside our body, they will start to increase. Food and food contact surfaces only serve to transport viruses which reproduce once in a human host. So food and food contact surface, they will only transfer from one source to another source. Whenever they will enter inside our body, then they will start to multiply. Outbreaks almost always due to poor personal hygiene or contaminated water supply. If your water supply is contaminated, then norovirus is a common source, common virus that you can get through the water sources. Parasitic hazards. Organism is Gardia lemlica, causes diarrhea, abdominal cramps, fatigue, nausea, and weight loss. And amoeba histolytica causes dysentery, like severe diarrhea with presence of blood in stool. And after that, we have Ascaris lumbricoides. This round form causes intestinal and lung infection. This is the one. Now, one you can see this one. This is the one. So then we have the fungus. We call it fungi. A number of fungi, especially, are capable of producing metabolites that are toxic to humans and domestic animals. These are called mycotoxins. We are calling it mycotoxin, aspergillus, sap, and the Fusarium sap. Aspergillus cause alpha toxins. Symptoms cause acute liver damage, cirrhosis, and suppress the immune system and cause liver cancer. Example, nuts, seeds, and cereals. After that, we have the mushroom. Mushroom are also poisonous and non-poisonous look alike. Purchase from reputable supplier. Whenever you are purchasing any mushroom, always purchase from the reputable supplier, and any vegetable which you are purchasing from any supplier. So the second type of hazards, we have the chemical hazards. Chemical hazards, they can occur naturally in the food, like mycotoxin, escombrotoxin, and shellfish poisoning. Intentionally added, the people, they will add the chemical in the food intentionally, like food additives, preservatives, nutritional additives, and color additives. Unintentionally or incidentally added chemicals like agricultural chemicals, toxic compounds, and lubricants. Naturally occurring chemical hazards. So the certain fish species like tuna, mahi mahi, Why a hazard? Why it is a hazard? Spoilage of certain species of fish can result in production of toxic levels of histamine. After that, we have the nuts in seafood. Certain species or varieties or species produce an allergic reaction in sensitive people. Then we have the corn. Certain molds that grow on corn can create toxins like aflatoxin. So this is the molds, it can cause aflatoxin. Now, intentionally added chemical hazards. So people sometimes they will intentionally add chemical to the food to improve their color, taste, sweetness, and certain other things. FD&C yellow 5, it is a source, can produce an allergic type reaction in food coloring. It is a food coloring in sensitive people. Now, the sodium nitrate, it is a preservative, can be toxic in high concentrations. After that, we have the vitamin A, can be toxic in high concentration. If you are adding high concentration of vitamin A, it can cause toxic. Now, sorry, sulfating agents can cause allergic type reactions in sensitive people. If they have the sensitivity or they are allergic to the sulfite, any sulfate agent, then they can cause allergic. Now, unintentionally added chemical hazards. Sources like agricultural chemicals and pesticides and herbicides can be acutely toxic if present in the food at high levels and may cause health risk with long-term exposure. The people who's involving in the agriculture, they don't know about the risk with the chemicals, so they just spray the chemicals to avoid the insect and other things. So because of that thing, it can cause chemical hazards. Cleaning chemicals, acids, and caustics can cause chemical burns if present in the food at high levels. While the people they are cleaning some parts of the chemical that can go on the food items, so that can contaminate the chemical. And when you are sanitizing your food items, and after that, maybe that required to wash your vegetables or fruits again after the sanitization, but you are not washing them again, and you are solving that food item with the chemical. So that chemical, when it will go inside the body, that can cause burn. Now, maintenance chemicals like lubricants and paint, chemicals that are not approved for food use and may be toxic. If you are not using any food grade chemical, grease, and oil to maintain your food contact equipments. So, unintentionally, those grease and oil will be mixed with the food item and that can cause any chemical hazard. So then the third one, we have the physical hazards. The sources of physical hazard, it could be glass, wood, stone, insulations, after then bone and metal. Why a hazard? It can cause cuts, bleeding, infection, choking, broken teeth, and trauma. And the sources of glass, it could be bottles, jars, light fixtures, thermometers, gauze covers. After then for the wood, sources of wood, it could be fields, pallets, boxes, and buildings. The stone, fields, building machinery, and employees. Insulation, like building materials. After then we have the bone, improper processing. Then we have the metal. Metal can come from the machinery, agricultural fields, wire, staples, building, and employees. So these are the some examples and the sources of physical hazard. There are lots of sources of physical hazards. So what you have to do before you implement any physical hazards control program, you have to identify the sources of physical hazards. Physical hazards, it could be from the employees, it could be from the building, it could be from the product itself, it could be from the so many products. Okay. So as per that one, you have to identify the sources, and after the sources you identify, you have to put the control measure for each source. Like let's say that one source of physical hazard is employee. So employee, from the employee, hair can fall down on the food, any jewelry can fall down on the food, and if they are wearing too much jewelry, necklace, earrings, or certain other things, that can fall down on the food and that can contaminate the food item. So how you can control these things? First of all, you can implement the personal hygiene checklist. Daily basis, you can check them whenever they are starting their duty. Before they starting the duty, you can check them, and after then monitor them on continuously whenever they are starting the duty. So as per that one, you have to identify the sources, and after the sources you identify, you have to put the control measure for each source. dealing with the food item to make sure that they are wearing the hairnet properly, the hair is not exposed to the food items. So certain things you can apply. So once you identify the sources, you can put the control measure as per sources. Then we have the factors contributing to contamination. What are the factors that can cause contamination? Meat and poultry potentially by Salmonella, Campylobacter, Clostridium botulinum, Clostridium perfringens, E. coli, and the Staphylococcus aureus, Listeria monocytogenes. Eggs can be contaminated by the Salmonella and Staphylococcus aureus, Listeria monocytogenes. Milk can be contaminated by the Salmonella and Staphylococcus aureus, and certain other things. These are the things. These are the product, and these are the bacteria that can contaminate to these food products. So you can check all these things, and after all of these things, you have to put the control measure as per the product and the bacteria. Now, logical sequence of application of HACCP. Now we will learn about the HACCP. First of all, there are certain, let's say that there are 5 standards and 7 principles in HACCP. So there are total 12 process steps that we have to go through, and we can understand about the HACCP. What is the HACCP all about? So the first standard we have is assemble the HACCP team. Second, we have the describe product. Third, we have identify intended use. Fourth, we have construct flow diagram. Fifth, we have on-site verification of flow diagram. Then we have analyze hazards. After that, we have determine the CCPs. Then we have the establish critical limits for each CCP. Then establish a monitoring system for each CCP. Establish corrective action for deviation that occur, and establish record keeping and documentation. And at the end, we have established verification procedures. So these are the 12 steps for the HACCP, implementation of HACCP. And in these 12 steps, we have 5 standards and 7 principles. First standard is HACCP team. Assemble the HACCP team. We have to assemble the HACCP team. Whenever you are assembling any HACCP team, you have to make sure that the HACCP team should be multidisciplinary. You should not take all the team member of the HACCP from the food safety team, or the all team member from the production team, or the all team member from the maintenance team. It should be the combination of the all department. 1 or 2 people from the production, 1 or 2 people from the quality department, 1 or 2 people from the maintenance, the store team, cleaning team, dispatch team, whatever the department you have in your business. People who are familiar with the actual operations. Do not involve any people who don't know anything about the operation of their department. Involve those people who have the proper knowledge about the operation of their department. Have the required knowledge and authority to implement changes. They should have the adequate knowledge, and they should have the authority to implement changes in their particular department whenever you are selecting any people for HACCP team. So these are the things you need to concern. Second steps, we have the describe the product. You have to describe the product. What product you're going to prepare? What product you're going to serve to the guest? So you have to describe the product. Whenever you are describing your product, product description should be there. Composition of the product, how it is made, how you're going to make this product, what are the ingredients you're going to use it, how you're going to cook it. So that description should be there, and the composition should be there. Method of preservation, how you're going to preserve that food product. If that food product need to be used for 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, or 7 months, how are you going to preserve that food product? After that, packing, how you're going to pack it, whether you're going to pack in a vacuum pack, whether you're going to pack in a can, how you're going to pack that one. The storage conditions, what is the storage conditions? Where you want that product to be stored, whether you want that product to the room storage, whether you want that product to the freezer, whether you want that product inside the chiller. So that storage conditions should be mentioned in the description of the product. After that, distribution, how it should be distributed. Then intended use and consumers. What is the intended use and the consumer? Who should consume this product and who should not consume that product? That information should be there also for the product. And the preparation, how you prepare this product. All these information should be there whenever you are describing the food product. And certain other things also you can include in the steps number 2, describe the product whenever you are describing your food product. But these are the minimum requirements that you have to include in the describe the product. After that, describe the intended use. Who going to use this product? Who is the target group? Whether you are targeting the children, whether you're targeting the pregnant people, pregnant group people, old people, any ill people. Example, retail shopper, a food service organization, infants, elderly who. And how the end product is used. Example, after cooking or is it ready to eat, item serving requirements. So how it should be used, intended use. Whether after open you have to that food product should be reheat, or that product can be eat as a cold food product, or you can eat as it is. So what are the requirements that you should include in the third steps? That example, there is one example which I'm gonna give you. One example, form 1, product description, that you will give the product description, then date and who approved. Product name, we have canned mushroom. After that, important product characteristics of end product. Example, water activity, pH. That is a pH and that is a water activity. How the product to be used, normally heated before serving. Now, this product saying that before you use this product, it should be heated. You can or sometimes served unheated. Whenever you are serving with the salad and appetizer, you can unheat also. After then, packing. Hermetically sealed metal container. It is a metal container, and the shelf life, it's giving the shelf life for 2 years plus at normal retail shelf temperature. And where the product will be sold, where you can sell this product, it can be sold in the retail, institutions, or food services. Could be consumed by high risk group. It can be consumed by the high risk group as well. And labeling instructions. What are the labeling instructions? There are none required to ensure product safety. There is no requirement. Special distribution control, no physical damage, excess humidity or temperature extremes. So whenever you are distributing this product, you have to put the control that it should not come into contact with the high temperature. That should not be any physical damage to the pan. There should not be any excess humidity. So these are the requirements for the product which you are selling. Intended use, how it should be used. After that, we have to prepare the flow chart. So step 1, first of all, establish the HACCP team, decide on team leader and scribe. After that, agree how representation will be done. First of all, as I said, you have to decide the HACCP team, and HACCP team leader should be decided. Step 2, agree the HACCP study team terms of reference, including the scope. Make sure all the team members are clear on the task to be carried out. Third, agree and specify the nature of the processing environment and the standards and work procedures in place. Fourth, agree and specify the nature of the ingredients and how the products will be made. And prepare a process flow diagram. After that, you have to prepare a process flow diagram. Process flow diagram is nothing else. It is the sequence and the stepwise diagram which will tell you that what you have to do after each process. Let's say that our first process is purchase. What you will do after purchasing? After purchasing, you will receive, and after that you will store. Okay, and after then you will prepare, then you will mix, then you will cook, then you will cool that product, then you will pack it, then you will dispatch it. So these are the things you have to follow whenever you are preparing any flowchart. Now, the fifth one, we have verify the flowchart. Whenever you are preparing any flowchart, that should be verified by the HACCP team as well. And the flowchart should not be verified at the office, in the office room. It should be verified physically. You have to take the flowchart with you and you have to take a round of the kitchen And you have to make sure that whatever is mentioned in the flow chart, it is exactly the same you are doing on the ground level. Check for accuracy and completeness. Identify possible contamination points. Whenever you are verifying your flow chart, you have to check that is there any possible contamination points, each steps that you have to check. So first, we can start from here. The receipt of foods and ingredients, then cold frozen storage, or it could go to dry storage, then it will go to food preparation. Cold frozen storage, it can come, if it is cold frozen storage, then it can go to reheating, then plating, garnishing of food, then delivery to customer, and return of uneaten food to kitchen. So as per your area, as per your process, these steps can be different. It is not like that these are the steps will be same as per your area. This is just an example which I'm giving you, and each process you have to verify as per your area, as per your task, as per your process. Once you verify that one, then you have to check the possible contamination points, and if there is any possible contamination points, you need to take the control measure on that, and you need to avoid those contamination points. Now, analyze the hazards. The first principle we have analyzed the hazard. So now we have finished with the 5 steps standards. Now we have these 7 principles. These 7 principles are very important. So the first principles we have analyzed the hazards. Hazard, any biological, chemical, physical, or allergenic thing that can cause harm to the consumer, that we have to analyze. What we have to do, we have to identify the hazards, determine the level of risk. Then hazards, their prevention, elimination, or reduction to safe level is essential for the production of safe food. Now, how you can analyze the hazards? Codex recommend that the scope to be limited to safety hazards only. Implementation is easier. The scope can be extended to wholesomeness, economic malpractices, or even quality issue. Knowing cause and effect of hazards. Hazard anticipation means that they can be anticipated and prevented. So this is the essence of hazard. So identify all hazards, use the process flow charts as a basis, but also include all influencing or contributing factors, example formulation, storage, and use product, distribution, etc. and include potential hazards whenever you are analyzing, whenever you are identifying the hazards. Question, how likely is the problem to occur? First of all, you have to ask how likely the problem can occur. Questions, what would the severity of the problem be if it were to occur? Low risk, not likely to occur, hazards not included. So you have to check that the risk and how frequently it can occur whenever you are analyzing the hazard. You have to establish the risk and severity for each. Identify hazards, identify likely risk and severity. Risk is the likelihood of occurrence and the severity is the seriousness of hazards. Risk, it could be high, medium, and low, and severity, it could be critical, serious, major, or minor. So as per that one, you have to make sure that whatever the hazards you have identified, there are the proper risk categorized. You have to categorize the risk and you have to establish the risk and severity. Like a risk assessment that we are doing in health and safety, the same way we have to do the risk assessment. Areas to consider for hazard analysis. Whenever you are identifying any hazard, you have to start from the first steps. The first step is the receiving. Raw materials, what hazards are likely to be present in each raw material that may affect the processed product? Are any of the raw materials themselves hazardous if excess amounts are added? Design and plant equipment premises, risk of cross-contamination during process holding stages, microbiological, chemical, physical safety issues. So these are the things you need to check at the receiving point. Hazard identification. For each identified hazard, detail the preventive measures to control the hazard. Example, sanitization you need, maybe you need the time control, maybe you need the temperature, You need labels, equipment maintenance, training, and good manufacturing practices. This is the hazard analysis worksheet, which I have shown you here. So, a step, we have receipt of raw semolina and flour. That is our step, which is a receiving. In this step, we have the hazard. Hazard, it could be biological hazard, chemical, and physical hazard. Contamination, the risk is it can be contaminated with bacteria, presence of mold due to moisture content. The second chemical hazard, we have contamination with mycotoxins, aflatoxin, and pesticides, residues, and heavy metals. And the third physical hazard, presence of foreign bodies. So that is the risk that we have. And after the risk, we have the control measure. What are the control measure? Control measure, we have approved supplier. Product should come from the approved supplier. The second control measure for the chemical, purchase from a reputable supplier. Third, we have the sieving magnets, purchase only from reputable and approved suppliers. So these are the control measures we have for the each hazard and the risk. Okay, and we have to ask the question 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we have to determine whether this step receiving is a CCP for this particular product or not. How to determine the CCP and how to ask these questions, I will explain you in the later video. But in this one, I will tell you. The question 1 is saying that, yes, it is very important. And question 2 saying no. Question 3 saying yes. Question 4, see, yes. So it's a CP. So CP means control point. So what we have to do, it is not the CCP, it is the control point. So we have to put the control measure. Further step will eliminate the identified hazard. If there is any particular hazard, we have the further steps that we can remove the biological hazard. So as per that, you have to ask the questions, and after that you have to determine whether it is a CCP, CP, or what, or OPRP. Now this is a decision tree which I was talking about. So how you can identify whether a particular product is a CCP or not for that particular steps. So the first question we have, as I said, you have to ask these 4 questions. Question 1, 2, question 3, and question 4. The first question we have, do control measure exist? If the control measure exists, yes, then you have to move to second question. Then you have to ask second question. Is the step specifically designed to eliminate the likely occurrence or reduce it to an acceptable level? If it is saying yes, then it is a CCP. Then, if you will go here, do control measure exist? If it is saying no, then you have to go question number 1A. If control necessary at this step to eliminate the hazard or reduce it to an acceptable level. If it is saying yes, then again you have to go up. Then you have to modify the step, process, or product. Then you have to go to question 1. Then you have to again ask the question 1. If it is saying no here in this one, then you need to go here, not a CCP, proceed to the next step in the process. Then it is not the CCP directly. Then you have the question 2. If it is coming here, it is saying no, then you have to move to the question 3. Can contamination with identified hazards occur in excess of acceptable levels or increase to unacceptable levels? If it is saying yes, then you have to move to the 4th question. Will a subsequent step in the process will eliminate the hazard or reduce it to an acceptable level? If it is saying yes, then it is not a CCP because then you have the further steps. You have to go here. In this one, if it is saying that can contamination with identified hazard occur in excess of acceptable levels or increase to unacceptable levels? If it is saying no, then you have to go directly here. Then it is not a CCP. So all these questions here, it will move to not a CCP. Only this one, question number 1, then you have to move to question number 2. If the particular step is specifically designed to remove the hazard or eliminate the hazard, then it is a CCP. Otherwise, it is not a CCP. It could be a OPRP, it could be PRP, it could be control point. So in that way, you have to identify whether your particular step is a CCP or not. Now, determine of critical control points. How you can determine the critical control points? A point, step, or procedure at which control can be applied and a food safety hazards can be prevented, eliminated, or reduced it to an acceptable level. So CCPs are product and process specific. Whenever you are defining any CCPs, that should be the product and that should be the product process specific. Example, cooking, metal detector, pH, formulation controls, etc. Now, common critical control points. Common CCPs, which is most of the businesses, they are using cooking, storing, cooling, receiving points of cross contamination, reheating, serving, and holding. These are the common critical control points. Activity. Now, this is the first activity. In this one, we have to identify of a CCP. Use the CCP decision tree and team judgment to identify CCP. First of all, you have to take the CCP decision tree, which I have shown you, where we have to ask 4 questions. After then, you have to judgment the identify CCP. Then discuss how the use of decision tree help the team's discussion. That the activity you have to perform. That activity you can perform with your HACCP team. After that, we have to establish critical limits. Once you identify the critical control point, you have to establish the critical limits. Suppose that your one of the critical control points is cooking. Your cooking critical control points is the cooking. So you have to establish the critical limits for the cooking. So the critical limit, what is the critical limit? Critical limit is a criteria that must be met for each preventive measure associated with a CCP. It represents the boundaries that are used to ensure that an operation produces safe products. So it could be time, it could be temperature, it could be pH, moisture level, and water activity. So whenever you are establishing any critical limits always should be in a number. That should not be in a words. Okay. Like let's say that food should be cooked properly. But how you will measure that your food should cook properly at what temperature? So it should be number. So critical limit will decide a boundary from acceptable to unacceptable. So let's say that my cooking temperature is 75 degrees Celsius. So 75 degrees Celsius is the critical limits. So that 75 degrees Celsius, draw a line which is saying that 75 degrees Celsius temperature is acceptable. Below 75 degrees Celsius, 74 degrees Celsius temperature is not acceptable. So now we are deciding the critical limits. So your critical limit is 75 degrees Celsius for the cooking. Temperature for the hot food, you can say that 63 degrees Celsius is the critical limit for the hot food. Below 63 degrees Celsius, it's not acceptable. So whenever you are deciding any critical limits, that should be in a number, not in a words. Now the cooking temperature, minimum cooking temperature minimum cooking temperature in this side I have gave you in the Fahrenheit. These are the minimum cooking temperature which we have to follow whenever we are cooking any food items, and we have to make sure that we are checking the food item temperature by the thermometer, which is the most reliable way to check the product temperature, not by organoleptic senses that we have to use. And always make sure that you are keeping your food away from the danger zone, below 5 degrees Celsius or above 63 degrees Celsius, to avoid any bacterial multiplication. Water activity. Water activity, microorganisms need water in available form. Solute salts and sugars decrease the level available water. Water activity is the ratio of the vapor pressure of foods compared to that of water. Typical water activity values: fresh fruits and pudding 0.92 to 1% of water, cheese and fresh meat that has the 0.95 to 1%, jam has 0.75 to 0.80, crackers has 0.10. That is the least water amount in the crackers. FDA, Food Department Authority, defines those foods with the water activity less than 0.85 as potentially, more than 85 as potentially hazardous, can reduce water activity. They are hazardous. So above 85 degrees Celsius, they are hazardous. So, and if there is a water in your food, that water can be reduced by freezing, dehydration, mixing with a solute like a salt and sugar. You can cooking like bacon. Water activity can be increased in some foods, like rice, beans, by soaking. Whenever you are soaking in water, then water can be increased in those foods. Now, monitor critical control points. Now you have identified that critical limits and you identify critical control points. One of the critical control points is cooking. The critical limit is 75 degrees Celsius. So how you can monitor that you will achieve that 75 degrees Celsius? So how you can monitor? To conduct a planned sequence of observation or measurements to assess whether a CCP is under control and to produce an accurate record for further use in verification. What you can do, you can use the thermometer to check the temperature of the food to make sure that the food is cooking at 75 degrees Celsius and at the same time you are maintaining the record of cooking. Each and every food item that you are cooking, that should maintain a record of cooking. And the purpose of monitoring, why we have to monitor? To track the operation of the process and enable the identification of trends towards a critical limit that may trigger process adjustment, and to identify when there is a loss of control, to provide written documentation of the process control system. So these are the purpose of monitoring. Now, when you are monitoring, these are the questions you have to put. What you will monitor, how you will monitor, who will monitor, when you will monitor, and sampling. Continuous monitoring is preferred. Attribute sampling must be statistically sound. Okay. And after that, we have the monitoring methods. Monitoring method include visual observation, includes like sensory and visual checks, visual observation for physical characteristics, checks of sanitary conditions. So in the monitoring, what you will monitor? You will monitor the cooking temperature. How you will monitor? You will monitor by thermometer. Who will monitor? The person who will cook the food, means cook. When you will monitor each and every time whenever you are cooking any dish. So these are the questions you have to ask, and these, in that way you have to answer these questions. After that, we have the established corrective actions. Any action to be taken when the results of monitoring at the CCP indicate a loss of control. So now let's start with the starting. As we know that we identify the critical control point is the cooking, and the 75 degrees Celsius is the critical limit. And after that, when you are monitoring the temperature of that food product, you assume that the product temperature is not 75 degrees Celsius, it is a 70 degrees Celsius. So what is the corrective action you will take? The corrective action here is you will cook the food product for more time to make sure that it will reach 75 degrees Celsius. So that is your corrective action. So whenever any product, any process is not meeting the control limits, critical limits, then you have to make sure that that product should reach that limit, or if it is not reaching that limit, what are the action you will take to make sure that that food product will not cause any harm to any consumer. Training to know corrective procedure of CCPs. How is the ingredient or product handled if BCP contamination occurs, biological, chemical, or physical contamination occurs at a CCP? Correcting the cause of non-compliance to prevent reoccurrence at a CCP. Demonstrating the CCP is again under control, and document corrective action. And whenever you are taking any corrective action, you have to document the corrective action also. Whatever things you are doing, you have to do the documentation. Corrective action, you can do the recook. As I said, if the temperature is not meeting 75 degrees Celsius, you can recook. Rapid chill in freezer. Send ingredients back to supplier if your ingredients not matching what you have ordered. Condemn product in cooler that is beyond its code date. Then reroute in an ingredient to a product where it does not pose a safety hazard, cooked product. So all these steps you can check as per the product, as per the process, as per the CCP, you have to take the corrective actions. After that, we have the established records. What are the records you have to establish? Records provide evidence that the HACCP system is working. That's why we have to establish records. Provide tracking systems, help identify problems, evidence of compliance to critical limits, evidence of corrective actions. So these are the reasons, these are the few reasons which I have included why we need to establish records. Record keeping, 4 kinds of record are needed: HACCP plan and support documentation used in developing the plan, information and data collected in order to arrive at critical limits, records of CCP monitoring, records of corrective actions, records of verification activities, training records, time temperature logs, cleaning records, whatever the things you are doing, performing, all of these things should be recorded. Why we need to record it? As evidence. If in the future, if anything goes wrong, only these records are there which will protect you, nothing else. So that thing you should keep in your mind. After that, we have the established verification procedure. We have to establish the verification procedure that we have to verify that our HACCP system is working properly and it is removing or reducing the hazard to an acceptable level, and we are producing safe food product to our consumer. The application of method, procedure, test, and audits in addition to validate and determine compliance with the HACCP plan and or whether the HACCP plan needs modification. Now the elements of verification: HACCP plan need to validate, HACCP system need to audits, equipment need to calibrate, targeted sampling and testing. Food need to be sampled and food need to be tested through the external laboratories as well, and certain other things you can do to verify your process is working properly or not. After that, we have the validation. Obtaining evidence that the elements of the HACCP plan are effective. It involves a scientific and technical review of rationale behind each part of HACCP plan, from hazard analysis to each verification strategy. Validation should include a third-party review. Validation should be done regularly. Reassess potentially new biological, chemical, and physical hazards. After that, evaluate all new ingredients. Whatever the new ingredients you are receiving, that should be evaluated. Suppliers need to evaluate. Production, process, equipment, and distribution system need to be evaluated. So now we're done with the 12 principles of the HACCP. Now we will start with the HACCP system audits. How we can start the audits? Before you start the audit, you should have all other things which I inform you now. You should have the thorough knowledge about these things. And there are certain changes happened by the Codex Alimentarius regarding the HACCP. I have made that separate video. You can check that video. There are some new requirements that we have to follow also. So now we will start the HACCP system audits. How we can do the audits to our HACCP system. First of all, confirmation all hazards are identified. Preventive measures identified for all hazards. Critical limits are sufficient. Procedures and equipment are calibrated adequately. Independent assessment to enable client to confirm that supplier conforms to safety and quality obligation. To enable the quality system to be certified. Audit performs to compare the actual practices and procedures written in the HACCP plan, systematic and independent. It includes on-site observation, interviews, and review of records. So whenever you are doing the HACCP audits, you have to check all these things to make sure that all the systems are followed properly. When you are doing the HACCP audit, you have to check the calibration. You have to check the instruments against a standard to ensure accuracy. Frequency sufficient to ensure continuous calibration. You have to check that how frequently the organization they're doing the calibration. The frequency should be mentioned in the HACCP plan, and as per that frequency, equipment or any other certain instrument that should be calibrated on timely basis. Calibration record need to be reviewed. You can take some sample of the calibration equipment and you can verify those with the calibration record. And there should be the master list of calibration where all the calibration calibrated equipment should be listed, and calibration date and calibration due date should be listed over there for the calibration. Then targeted sampling and testing, microbiological analysis of the sample, organoleptic analysis. Samples can be taken to ensure that the equipment settings to control the CCPs are appropriate for product safety. When you are targeting any sampling and testing, you can check whether the company organization they are doing any sampling or testing or not. You can review the records and you can check that these samplings are appropriate to make sure that the product they are producing that is safe for human consumption. Verification of the HACCP plan. This is the most important thing that you have to do during the audit. You have to verify the HACCP plan. The assessment of the HACCP plan before implementation to provide confirmation that it is valid, accurate, and complete. Verification procedure, how you can verify. Procedure other than those used in monitoring to ensure that the HACCP plan is implemented correctly and remains effective that you have to do. Audit the plan, you have to audit the plan, you have to analyze the data, whatever the data is there, review the consumer complaints, check the customer complaints, what kind of complaints they have raised, and what are the actions has been taken by the organization. Microbiological analysis you have to do also. You can check the reports which is done by the organization, how frequently they are doing report of the microbiological analysis for the foods, water, any surface contact. So these things you have to check. Now, how to verify the HACCP plan? Use personals with auditor skills. Whenever you are choosing any person for the audit, that person should have the auditor skills. Assess all elements of the HACCP plan. Process flow diagram, you need to check. Process flow diagram, whenever you're checking, make sure that process flow diagram is accepted by the HACCP team and there is a signature by the HACCP team as well. And HACCP control chart should be there. Assess the process area, control measures, and process capability. Verification data analysis. To identify trends and allow improvements to be made. To initiate investigate work. Confirm that the HACCP plan continues to be effective. To ensure timely and appropriate corrective action is taken. So these are the data need to analysis. What types of data you will analyze? The data you will analyze CCP log sheets. So how many CCPs are there in the organization? You have to analyze that data log sheet. Process control chart, if there is any process control charts or not there. Audit reports. Whenever you are analyzing any audit reports should include internal audit, external audit, and any legal audits. Customer complaint data, internal and external complaint, pest control record, minutes of meeting with the management, HACCP team meeting, and the HACCP, hygiene, quality, that you have to check. Now, this is the HACCP plan form. HACCP plan template, this one you have to use to make a HACCP plan. Now, the process steps or CCPs you have to identify here. Maybe your CCP or your process step is first one is a receiving. You have to identify the possible hazards. What are the possible hazards are there? Like chemical, biological, allergenic, and physical. What are the critical limits? Critical limits for the temperature, you can say that all the food products that you will receive, cold one, it should be below 5 degrees Celsius. So your critical limit is below 5 degrees Celsius. So how you will monitor? Monitoring. What, who, frequency, who, action. What, how, frequency, who, that you will do. What you will monitor? Temperature. Temperature you have to write down here. How you will monitor? Through thermometer, by thermometer. Monitoring frequency, what is the frequency? Each delivery you will write here. After that, monitoring who? Receiver, food receiver, or storekeeper. Corrective action. If the temperature is not meeting, what is the corrective action you will take? Maybe the temperature is too high, so you will send back the deliveries, or maybe the temperature is little bit low, so you will close the vehicle door, so the temperature will come down, then you will receive it. So what are the corrective action you will do? Now the verification, how you will verify? You will verify these by the records, by random checking and record keeping. What are the records you will maintain? Records should be maintained for the receiving record with the date, supplier, time, product, temperature, vehicle hygiene conditions, and product received or rejected. If it is rejected, what is the issue? If you are rejecting that one, what are the action you are taking after that? Whether you are sending any email to the supplier, and you are asking the corrective actions or not. So these are the things you have to mention in your HACCP plan. For each product and each CCP, you have to follow the same steps. HACCP manual. You should maintain a HACCP manual. HACCP manual is very, very important. Without HACCP manual, you will not gonna implement your HACCP system. And without HACCP manual, your company will not certify for the HACCP certification. In the HACCP manual, your company profile should be there. What your company is doing, the history of the company should be there. Introduction that you will give. Your organization chart should be there. Like the department head, how many people is there, who is reporting to who, organization chart should be there. Hygiene department organization chart separately should be there. HACCP and good manufacturing committee should be there. HACCP team, HACCP policy, definition and terminology that should be there in your HACCP manual. In the HACCP manual, you should include about the training, how you will provide the training, what is the frequency of the training, whom you're going to provide the training, what type of training you will provide, whether you provide internal training, external training, that thing you should maintain about the training, and the records of training that should be there. Prerequisite and support program, there are 12 PRPs. Those 12 PRPs should be included in the prerequisite programs, like the waste management, pest treatment, cleaning procedures and process disinfection, all these things. It should include your good manufacturing practices and SSOP, etc., machinery and equipment layout, start flow and machinery flow, and hazard analysis worksheet should be there also, and HACCP plan and verification procedure audit. How you will do the verification procedure, how you will do the audit, what is the frequency of audit, who will involve in the audit, and how you will do the complete audit process should be there in your HACCP manual. The HACCP manual additional documentation should be there. Menu. What are the food items you are preparing? That menu should be there. The specifications should be there. Kitchen recipes, operating procedures, work instructions, and what are the records you will maintain. That should be there in your HACCP manual. Audits. What is the audit? Audit is a systematic and independent examination to determine whether quality activities and results comply with the planned arrangements and whether these arrangements are implemented effectively and are suitable to achieve objectives. So this is the definition of audits. Objectives. Audits can be internal and it could be external. Internal audits, it could be conducted by the people who work for the business, like the internal audit. External audit can be conducted by the people who do not work for the business, like the legal audits by the municipality. External audit can be by the client. It could be by this for the suppliers. So these are the external audits. Internal audits. Internal audits examine the system for adequacy and for correct implementation. The process involves examining objectives, evidence regarding the working of the system. Internal audits are mandatory for other management systems. It provides the management with data regarding the effectiveness of their own system. Now, examination of procedures and work instruction to establish that the requirements of the procedures and work instructions are being met. Compare internal systems to the requirements of the international standards. Whenever you are doing audit, you can compare these internal systems with the international standards. You have to identify opportunities for improving the activities during the audit. You don't have to only find the negative observation. You have to find the positive observation also, and you have to give the opportunity for improvements as well. You have to provide the feedback to management necessary to review the management systems, process criticality and complexity, improve communication and quality awarenesses, maturity of the system, and previous audit results. Essentially, an internal audit is similar to a compliance audit. Now, internal audit should be scheduled and it should be planned. You can use a checklist. Checklist is always better because you will not, sometime it could be better, sometime it could not be better, but you have to use the checklist also, but always do not work inside the box. Like you should not always stick to the checklist. If there is something else also that you should identify it also during the audit. Preparation, check auditees are ready, check paperwork, document findings, write up audit, raise NCR. You have to log the NCR, inform auditee, obtain acceptance, copy the auditee and master copy to the corrective action record file, file audit report and update audit schedules. So this is the full process of audit, how you will conduct an internal audit. Now, identifying resources. To effectively implement the audit process, management needs to establish a group of trained and qualified auditors. For internal auditors, if you have to make sure that your audit is proper, first of all, you have to give the resources. Resources are auditors, people. You have to properly identify who is qualified and trained for auditing purpose. Auditors should be independent of the areas to be audited. The person who is working in that particular area, the same person should not be audited in that particular area. Like any production manager or the any sous chef or executive chef, they should not audit to that area. They should audit to different area, but they should not be audited to their same areas. Now, scheduling the audit. How you will schedule the audit? Audit should be scheduled before. It should not be happen that suddenly you will go and you will start the audit. It should be scheduled. Audit program and schedule. You have to make an audit program and it should be scheduled. Schedules are produced by dividing the system into manageable parts. Unscheduled audits are undertaken when failure in the system has been identified in day-to-day operations and current objective evidence need to be cited before circumstances change. So this is the acceptance on certain issues. Audit team brief. You should brief the audit team. The lead auditor should assemble and brief the audit team as to the details and events of the audit. It is the responsibility of the lead auditor that he will brief the audit team, the details of the audit and events of the audit. The audit process. The audit process includes preparation 30%, performance 50%, reporting 10%, and follow-up 10%. You have to do the report also, you have to do the follow-up also after the audit. Approach the DAP to be audited, department to be audited, appoint the audit team, and review relevant documentation. And documents should be the current revision status. Notify the auditee, agree on the audit program, brief the audit team, and develop the audit checklist. This is the preparation that you have to do before starting any audit. Developing audit checklist and review. Whenever you are developing any audit checklist that you will gonna use for during the audit, you have to make sure that each auditor involved in an audit schedule develop checklist for the sections of the audit they will perform. It should not happen that only the lead auditor that will perform develop the audit checklist. You should include all the audit team members. Experienced auditors may not require these. Auditors need to read and understand the relevant documents. They should ensure that the auditor is familiar with the activities of the sections to be audited. Before you start any audit, get the documents from the auditees and get familiar with them. So it will be easy for you to audit the particular department and it will be very easy. It is advisable for the team leader to review the checklist to ensure all relevant audit requirements have been included. Before you finalize any audit checklist, it is the responsibility of lead auditor to review the audit checklist. Now, performing the audit, the opening meeting. When you are performing the audit, you have to start with the opening meeting. In the opening meeting, you have to introduce yourself with all the team members, with the management members, and you have to tell what is the scope of the audit, how you're going to do the audit, what are the things you will do the audit, what are the resources you need. Maybe you need the any person for during the audit. After that, conducting the audit. Then you will do the audit team meeting. Then closing meeting will be there. During the closing meeting, you will inform all the things what you have done during the audit. Now, in the opening meeting, the lead auditor should convince a brief meeting between the audit team and the auditee. As I said, notes should be taken of those present and any exceptional item discussed. Whenever you are doing the opening meeting, you should take a signature from the auditees and the people who presents during the opening meeting. Conducting the audit. The audit should be carried out at the location where the procedures and the work instructions are being implemented and records and objectives evidence are readily available. Used with the checklist, the auditor tools are simply questioning 20%, listening 20%, and observing 20%. It should not be that you are only the questioning the people, questioning. And so you will not get the proper information. You have to listen them also, and you have to observe them during the audit also, what they are doing, how they are doing, whether they are doing the process properly, accurately or not. Now, questioning and listening. Questioning. When questioning, use simple language. Do not use any like food. You are food technologist. Do not use any heavy language. Use direct but open question. Asking the auditee to explain and show helps to transfer volumes of information, relaxes and encourage the auditee. After that, listening. Effective listening, it is very, very important and involves creating the atmosphere for putting the auditee at ease, removing any distractions, explain that you are auditing the system, not the people. You are not going to blame anyone. Listening to the answer, concentrate on what is being said and judge whether the auditee has understood the question. Controlling emotions. During the audit, control your emotions. It is very, very important for the auditors. As I have seen during the auditors, some of the auditors, what they will do, they will get hyper. If they will not get the proper answer, if they will not get the things properly, they will get hyper, they will get angry. So it should not be like this. Look interested when listening. This encourages the auditee to respond. Keep all emotions and prejudice under control. Practice at being objective. It will help you to listen and understand the other point of view. Look for non-verbal communications. And objective evidence should be examined, recorded, reviewed, and evaluated. All observations should be recorded on the checklist together with the details of any non-conforming or adverse conditions. Now, non-conformities and non-compliance note. Now, non-conformity is the absence of procedure or the total breakdown of its implementation. Then you can issue an NC. If there is absence of procedure or the total breakdown of its implementation, if the process is not implemented, then you can raise an NC. A number of findings against the same clause of the standard procedure, etc. If there are so many findings regarding the cleaning and the sanitization process, then you can raise a NCR. A number of findings against the same area or section of the company. In the same section, you have so many findings, or in the same area, you have so many findings, then you can raise a NCR. Excuse me. After that, we have non-compliance note. Audit and HACCP plan reference. Non-compliance, date action required by auditors, auditee acceptance, corrective actions, and verification. Whenever you are raising any NCR, it should be audit and HACCP plan reference. Non-compliance should be the date and action required by auditors, and auditee should be accepted. These NC and corrective action and the verification should be there for the NCR. Now, closing meeting. Once you will do all these things, now you are done with the audit. Now you have to do the closing meeting. The purpose of the closing meeting is to provide the auditee with an outline of the findings and to ensure these are understood, requesting signatures on the corrective action things. During the closing meeting, you will explain all the things what you have done through the audit, what are the findings is there, good findings, negative findings, opportunity for improvements, NCRs, all these things you will discuss. And you have to make sure that auditee, they are agree with these findings. If they are not agree, the reason, and you have to discuss with them. Now, maintenance of the HACCP system. Once you will done all these audit, you have to make sure that your HACCP system is maintained. How you can maintain your HACCP system? By verifying and updating procedures. Ongoing internal audits, data analysis, keeping abreast of emerging hazards, updating and amending the HACCP plan, ongoing training requirements, maintenance, documentation. So these are the process you can follow to make sure that your HACCP system is working properly. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much for your time and patience. I hope you like this video, and these HACCP Internal Auditor Training, that will be very helpful for you. And if you want to know about how to audit the full system, I will make another video for the ISO standards. So that will going to you more helpful for you during the audit. So thank you so much for your time and patience, and please do not forget to subscribe my channel and like my videos, and please do share with your friends and colleagues as well. So see you on the next video.